At the Australian Childhood Foundation, we work with so much pain and so much trauma that has occurred in the lives of children. We're constantly looking for ways to help kids recover, to engage the resources around them, the people around them in relationships that are going to help support them and really leave the impact of the trauma behind as they grow older. And that's why Sensorimotor Psychotherapy and the partnership that we have with Pat Ogden and her institute is so important to us. It means that we're able to bring to Australia a way of working that's respectful, a way of working that is positive, it's resourcing of children, and it doesn't need words, and that's probably the most essential element of it.
Well, as a clinical psychologist, I had training in how to work with the emotional and cognitive elements of trauma, but the Level 1 course really taught me how to understand and work with the physiological elements of trauma. A big thing I learned was how to regulate some of the dysregulation that comes with trauma. We learned ways of working directly through the body to settle symptoms of hyperarousal, and also to work through the body in the relationship to kind of energise and stimulate and regulate symptoms of very low hypoarousal. We also learned ways of working with the more implicit memories associated with trauma that are quite difficult to access through more talking therapies. So I use sensorimotor psychotherapy with a really wide range of clients: adult survivors of childhood abuse and neglect, military, police, emergency service personnel, and also survivors of motor vehicle accidents, sexual and physical assault, medical trauma, pre-verbal trauma, war, terrorism, explosions. It's just been enormously helpful for all of those clients. I think to begin with, I was kind of integrating sensorimotor psychotherapy into the other therapeutic modalities I've been trained with, and it worked really well as like a complementary practice. Over the years, I just enjoy sensorimotor so much, and it resonates for me at such a deep level that these days I'm very much working primarily from that modality and integrating other therapeutic techniques into sensorimotor psychotherapy. Yeah, I'd recommend the Level 1 Sensorimotor Psychotherapy course to anyone that's interested in getting a better understanding of how trauma does impact us, not only emotionally, not only our beliefs, but also at that deep body level. It is such a lovely, respectful way of working with the legacy of trauma, and I like it because it helps us to really kind of tap into that inner wisdom that lies within the client, that innate capacity for healing, and to work with that rather than against that in a way that just supports that natural healing and growth.
After finishing the Level 1 training, probably I would say the biggest thing that I learnt was about how to regulate client states of arousal so that they stay within the window of tolerance. And a really, really important thing that I learnt is that you've got to choose the right intervention depending on whether someone's hyper-aroused or whether they're hypo-aroused. And if you choose the wrong intervention, it'll actually keep them in that state instead of bringing them back to a level that's tolerable for them. I think from the moment they come in, so the moment they kind of walk in my door, I'm looking out for, how contained are they? Are they getting activated? Are they getting triggered? I'll even pick up on clients that, they might be running late, for example, and they'll walk in the door and they'll just be frantic. And I just slow it all down. So, invite them to come in, have a cuppa, and they're kind of thinking, I'm 10 minutes late, I'm, using up my session, I've got to get into this. And probably in the past I would have done that. I would have grabbed out my assessment form and got straight into it and had a look, okay, what symptoms are they presenting with and all of that sort of stuff. But now I know that you just can't do that because we won't get any of the work done we need to do. I'd absolutely recommend the Level 1 training course to, I think, anyone that is working with clients with trauma. A lot of the training courses are very top-down, so cognitive behaviourally based, which has its place, and it's fantastic, but trauma is very much held in the body. So unless you have strategies to resolve what's happening in the body and in the nervous system, then that arousal just kind of keeps on going and it doesn't really ever resolve itself.
I had a fair amount of knowledge about trauma before I went into the course, but I guess the stuff that I learned from that was really about how we hold those kind of implicit trauma memories in our body, and what that feels like, and I guess how we can begin to work with that. So for me, I had a lot of experience working with the emotions and the thoughts of people, particularly work a lot with children, so working with that stuff. But the level 1 training really brought to me the capacity then to work with the body as well. And for me, it felt a bit like the missing link. It was like, this is what I've been needing all of this time. So, yeah. The whole concept of kind of sequencing through that trauma and allowing people to have that experience so that they can come back down to kind of a calm situation, and if they can't do it themselves, if their body's not doing it, that we can actually kind of walk them through that process. So reinstating that active kind of defence, I guess, is the in a response to trauma, which can really help in some ways uncouple that experience. I would definitely recommend level 1. I think for anybody who's working with children or adults who have experienced trauma, it just brings that added dimension to that work. So, that somatic kind of body-based stuff, which for me, previously having kind of worked with the cognitions and the behaviours and the emotions, I always felt like something was missing. And I think level 1 brings that something that's missing, that kind of body-based work.
The important thing, which is something for both level 1 and level 2, is also learning for myself as a therapist about how to manage myself and the importance of tracking what's happening for myself within my body as much as tracking for a client. And I think that's been really helpful. So the difference it made to my work was both in terms of that I mainly supervise staff, so giving staff resources to how to help people when they're telling their stories, children, how to help parents when they're telling their stories, to notice what's happening within their body and to track that, to make sure that people aren't leaving more traumatised when they came, helping them really integrate as well the trauma that they have experienced, both from that sensory level as well as a cognitive level. So, and doing that in small pieces, realising to do that in really small pieces.
One of the most important things I learned in level 1 in the trauma training was learning how to work with the window of tolerance and being really strong and really confident in managing states of arousal. Yeah, that was really important. I knew the concept and worked with it prior to that, but it really cemented my understanding of it, and that was really, really important. I had done a fair bit of training in trauma, bits and pieces, courses, and there was still something missing for me. The body seemed to be the place to go. One of the things I loved about level 1 was that right from the first block, I could use that in my work. I could apply it straight away. Some of it was just about seeing things through a different lens, but there were essential skills that I could apply right from the first block. The thing I used most in my work was probably using the body as an access route rather than cognitions or emotions, starting with the body and really bringing that to the forefront because it's so rich. And with trauma, it's everything, really. So that was firmly established by the time I finished my training.
I think working therapeutically for about 15 years and just feeling like there was really a gap in my knowledge in terms of how to respond to really physiological activation, I guess. And obviously being trained primarily in more cognitive and emotional ways of working with people, it really felt like, I was hopeful that the sensorimotor training would kind of round that out and help me to be able to work on all levels with people in terms of their experience, or to work cognitively, emotionally and with the body. It was quite challenging but really exciting to kind of begin that shift from working more with narrative and story to working with the present moment and working with what's actually happening, for the person in the room at the time. But also to understand, be exposed to all of that relevant neuroscience, to really feel like I was starting to get a much kind of clearer and more comprehensive overview of the research behind trauma therapy, and to start to feel a little bit more confident about processing some traumatic memory in a safe way.
Well, I hope that students will walk away with a real embodied sense of that idea of inner intelligence for themselves and their clients. And also, I hope that they will walk away with a new kind of relationship to embodiment, and kind of an honoring and valuing of the body. And see, because once they really get that, then all the techniques and everything will just come out of that kind of context.